Welcome to another episode of Marketing Over Bourbon. I'm your host, Sheila Butler of Butler Marketing Group. Today, I'm sitting down with someone who's mastered the art of blending creativity, strategy, and storytelling, RK Kelley. From leading large-scale Disney entertainment, special events, and operations, to elevating the guest experience with cutting-edge technology at Princess Cruises, RK's career is nothing short of remarkable. We're pulling back the curtain and unveiling the secrets to pitching creative ideas to senior executives, identifying the main thing, and more. So pour yourself a drink, settle in, and enjoy this inspiring conversation with RK Kelley. So RK, welcome.
Well,
thank you for coming.
Sheila.
Cheers to that, lady.
Cheers to that.
So we're drinking Kirsch today.
Okay.
I haven't tried this
My
one.
favorite. Let's try it.
It wasn't the turquoise bottle. And like an orange, right? Is it smooth?
Hirsch is smooth.
It's very
That's
smooth.
why I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And complex. So,
As are we.
as are we. Absolutely.
All right, so let's dive in. All right, career journey. We're going to talk about this first.
Okay.
So your career has spanned, as I said, right? Roles in creating and producing new guest experiences, directing costuming for Disney, which is unbelievably complex, and now consulting in Magic Makers. So how has each chapter shaped your approach to leadership and strategy?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you. You know, I was so fortunate in the early part of my career to spend 25 years at Disney and was moved, whether we like it or not, developed through a whole progression of different roles, starting with special events, started as Disney tour manager, going into creative production, becoming a producer, which was really my dream, an executive producer, brought out Disney Cruise Line, which I'm sure you'll ask about at some point.
We'll get there, yeah.
And then went into large-scale operations. And at the time, such as costuming and parks and such. And at the time, I thought, okay, well, they're teaching me sort of the technical skills of leadership in different situations, right? And I think over time, what I really was learning, and now what I understand, is they were teaching me to identify the main thing in each operating environment, creative environment, production environment, one day Super Bowl halftime show or 365, massive operations. Finding the main thing, both creatively and from an execution point of view, which is people,
Sure.
with a lot of process. That's really what I was learning. And that all of those experiences shaped that understanding. And now as a consultant, it's really interesting to walk into a business and think, what's their main thing? And are they clear on it? And do they all know that?
How long does it take you to laser into that main thing? Do you walk in and go, I got this?
It depends on the situation. Obviously, if I'm working on a themed entertainment project, it comes pretty darn quick.
Right.
Because I spent a lot of years there. I did a project with a huge specialized engineering firm. And so I had to learn some of their language and such. But at the end of the day, it's always the same. Same is an overstatement. There are themes about businesses that work and businesses that are struggling. And those they appear pretty quickly.
I love it. Okay, so we're going to talk about special events. You touched on Super Bowl. By the way, always wanted to work on one, never got to.
Oh,
so I'm very
I'm
envious.
so sorry.
Well, yeah, there's still time.
There
But
is.
anyway,
You're young.
So
We're young.
Special events, we are. So during your time at Disney, right, you created and worked on numerous special events. I worked on 60, and that pales in your numbers, right?
I have no idea. Hundreds, I would say.
So here's what I loved about special events is that they brought marketing messages to guests in a branded sort of way that really reinforced the brand promise of the park or the point of difference, right? So can you share an example of one of your favorite events, and how did the event really shape and bring to life the marketing message?
Oh my goodness. There were so many to choose from, right? We met doing a huge special event, the Indy 500 Festival, when the year that Disney branded the entire festival, and we worked together on that. And obviously, we used the platform of the Indy 500 and an audience that perhaps wasn't all core Disney. You know,
Right.
you're reaching race fans and regional people in that area that perhaps hadn't made the trek yet to Walt Disney World. And we use that massive platform and that massive television audience to introduce to a new audience just all the complexity of Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
You know, we all see the fireworks over the castle. It's at every TV show, every movie. We know that's there. But what else? And that you'll remember during the parade and such, we introduced Epcot and brought in all this different talent and really tried to show the diversity of experiences in the parks and resorts. So that's a good example, and that was super fun because I met you.
Very fun. I know. So by the way, what people don't know is that my career at Disney, and really my entire career, started because of you, because you gave me the opportunity. After working, for maybe like 4 months?
Yeah.
I think I would finish class at 3:30. I would drive from Bloomington up to Indianapolis, and I would work with you guys until
Midnight.
10 p.m., midnight, whatever it was, right?
Go to St. Elmo's.
And you said at the very end, you said, I didn't pay you a penny, but I will be happy to introduce you to people at Disney and set up job interviews. And so I'm like literally here today because of you.
Yeah,
so
cheers.
Thank you. So cheers to that.
Our gain.
Mm.
So we were lucky. Oh, I have to sip, right?
Well, thank you very much. You know what's interesting too about the Indianapolis event is that was probably like a secondary market for drawing guests down to Disney, right? It's not one of like the big 5 cities, but it was really core to bring in the Midwesterners.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, it's
brilliant.
A great match.
All right, so we're going to stay on the creative entertainment vein just a little bit more.
Okay.
So can you share some challenges as well as successes from your days in creative entertainment? And how did that change how you pitch an idea? Because I remember the dog and pony shows when you're trying to sell in a concept for a new parade, a stage show, or whatever. So how did that experience really change how you pitch just in general an idea to a client or?
Oh my goodness. Yes, you pitch a lot and you learn to pitch a lot, present a lot. Having a pretty broad background, both technical, production, and creative, I think when I first started, I wanted to explain too much and too many details, too many facts and figures, right? And that is because I had all this information and I wanted to share it. And I thought everybody in the room, Michael Eisner wanted to know that. No, he did not want to know that. But so you had to capture the imagination. You had to capture the idea, paint a picture, and then peel that onion back. But if you start in the 14th layer of the onion, they will not, it's harder. Then you're backing up and, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you the story. And so you really have to go outside in. And what's the promise? How are you going to feel at the end of this?
There's
always
a brand
make
promise.
The guests imagine? Where are we going to go on this story, on this adventure? And you have to show that map very quickly. And then build it.
Okay, so I'm going to build upon that question for you. How did you need to adapt your pitches depending upon the executive that you were pitching to, right? So was it different with Bob Iger than Michael Eisner or other people? Like not even necessarily the CEO.
Right, not necessarily. Yes, they're all different, but I think some of those principles are the same, that you have to lay out the story. Now, certainly, we've had leaders that came up through the finance ranks. Right?
Yes.
You know, Judson Green, Al Weiss, brilliant people. Michael, creative, fast, visual, wants that. When you pitch to Al, for example, I know I better get to the money pretty darn quick because he can't listen. No offense, Al. He's thinking the whole time, this sounds fantastic, but how much is it going to cost? so it's a different, you do shift up your cadence
Yeah.
and your, and what you hit in what order. And you want to reassure them that you're bringing them something that
Yeah.
can be done. Or if you're going to say, I know you said $10 million and this is a little higher than that, but let me tell you, like, you got to limit that anxiety, particularly for people with a finance background, because the whole time they're thinking that.
Right.
So
Right. That's what they're waiting to hear.
they're waiting to
What's
hear. Yeah.
interesting
So they
too-
might not catch the concept
Right.
if you don't give them a box around it pretty quickly.
Right. And even I think in business, as people are writing PowerPoint decks or something like that, what's interesting to me is that so many people write it because that's how they want to hear it versus writing it for the audience.
Right.
Right?
Totally.
Some people want to cram like a ton of stuff on the slide and you go, literally they want 4 words
Yep.
and they just want to listen to you tell the story, right? To know your audience. Okay. Disney Cruise Line. All right. So your work on developing and launching Disney Cruise Line was incredible. And
Great team.
it was a great team. Yes. Oh, I have a and for you. I've got a yes and for you about teams. But what were some of the biggest challenges? Because you and I were both on the opening team, and that was like everything was new, right? So what were some of the biggest challenges to create this entirely new guest experience? And how did you work through those challenges?
So Disney Cruise Line was setting out to be something that did not exist. It was a true Disney greenfield, blue sky. The industry as we knew it was something that we analyzed and rejected as not being what Disney would want to present.
Right.
It's not really well known, and this could be a whole show in itself, but the first year of the project, which when it was all still very secret, was actually an analysis. And did we stay with Premier Cruise Line and buy those boats and
big red
fix
boat,
them?
right?
Did we partner with an RCCL or a Carnival? And those talks happened. Do we get out of it altogether? Are we cannibalizing our resort, our land experience, right? Are we losing money to the sea? Or do we go it alone? And the only way we could get the creative control was to go it alone and build our own ships.
Yeah.
Right? Because we knew what the main things had to be. Right? At that time, the children's program was like a sticky ball pit in off of the pool deck, and
Germany.
And theaters were show lounges with cocktail waitresses, words of the era, and banquettes and people that didn't face the stage. And we're a storytelling company.
Right.
We had to bring the stories, and stories take space, stories take focus, stories take layering of both detail and long view, right?
Yeah.
Right, just like film. And so everything had to be custom designed. We could not lift designs from other ships.
Yep.
And it was all original. So what was the struggle? Alignment. Alignment of the cruise industry expertise and the Disney expertise.
They're very different.
Very different.
At least then.
Cultures.
Yes.
Extremely different. Now, Disney Cruise Line very successfully merged and found its own way. But at the time, it was complete, controlled chaos, because you had experts in all these areas, both from Disney and from the industry, with very different ideas about what works, and this is the way we do things. And it was
the cultures were very different,
very
stylistically, even leadership, and how they
communication,
speak. And yes,
everything.
all of it. Everything was different.
The sort of the very hierarchical paramilitary style of cruise ship operation, which has to be that way to some degree, was completely foreign to Disney people who it's all cast first, right? And so there were a lot of adjustments, and we did battle. I took some of my fights all the way to the top of the company, because I so knew that we had to win that theater design conflict, I'll say. Right. I don't quite call it a battle, but some people might remember it as such. But, that went all the way to Eisner. And I talked and talked and talked and explained and presented over and over and over why we could not have a show lounge. And my colleagues from the cruise industry were not backing me, you know? So you had to be really willing to fight for what matters.
And I
but
think
we
that's
got
important,
there.
right? Because I remember working on the marketing materials, and there was this phrase, purpose built, right? They
Purpose-built.
designed the ship from the inside out.
Mhm.
And so if you're not going to bat for the things that you really, really believe in, and really taking your cred and just saying, like, I will use my credibility for this, and I will go to bat for this because I really believe in it, because you can't take that back. You can't change it later, not on a cruise ship.
Decisions, yes. Right. And it has to float. And it has to
And it's being built in 2 different parts of Italy.
Yes, right. And it has to, all the safety regulations are so high in cruise ship construction, fire and HVAC and all that stuff. So yeah, it is an engineering marvel.
Yes.
And those teams did an amazing job.
So speaking of teams, I've worked on some amazing teams. I can think in my career, like a couple that I just go, if I could replicate that experience all over again, I totally would. So you mentioned that you had a great team on cruise line. Can you think of a couple experiences in your career where you just say, like, man, that was an amazing moment. Like, and everyone worked together to where you go, I couldn't have done this without this collective group of people. And it was magic at the moment.
Oh, certainly. I really can't think of any successes that didn't have great teams. I honestly can't. At any given moment, maybe I did or said something that helped make a difference, but all the other moments somebody else was doing that.
Yeah.
I think what's so interesting about teams is, as a leader, you have to invest yourself. Mm-hmm. Whether you have 2,000 employees in your department, or you have a little boutique kind of strategy group of 10 people. And I've had both. And really walking a mile in their shoes, no matter what the job is.
Yep.
Always, for me, I'm not going to ask anybody to do anything or work any harder than I'm going to. Yeah. If I can do it. I can't go, dance on the castle stage, at least not now. But, I will be there at rehearsal. I will support that. I will understand the journey. Yeah. And I will support the team. So that was always a big part of my calling card.
Right.
Is that investment and setting a vision. So we've had amazing teams at all sizes and all places. I think the hardest challenge with teams, I would say, was building a worldwide team when working with all the sites around the world. People you'd never met, or you met once on a business trip or at a conference, and now they work for you, and or you work for them. And now we have to have those kinds of relationships, and really demonstrating that, no, this is for real. I've got your back. Yeah. And I'm going to put in the work with you.
I love it.
So.
We're taking a quick bourbon break. So while glasses are refilled, let's talk about something as important as a good pour, your marketing. I'm the founder of Butler Marketing Group, and we help businesses, small, medium, and Fortune 500, navigate growth and transformation with marketing that's strategic, intentional, and built to leave a legacy. Whether you need branding, marketing strategy, loyalty, or a fractional chief marketing officer, we've got the perfect blend of services for your business. Contact Butler MG to get started. Now, back to the show. Okay, so leadership philosophies. We've been talking a little bit about leadership. So you've led a team of 2,000 cast members, right? And you've consulted with executives in various industries and companies and so forth. What core leadership principles have guided you in your career?
The purpose of the leader is to lead toward something, right? The main thing. That is the purpose of the leader. When the leader is not clear, either she doesn't know themselves or cannot communicate that,
right?
Then how can they possibly set the course for the team to follow? the team desperately wants a path. Nobody shows up at work every day to be lost or on Zoom, or to feel like they're wasting their time, or they're not sure if this is what you want.
Right. Or how am I contributing?
Yes.
How does my role make a difference?
Exactly.
Right.
So the role of the leader, first of all, is to point to the vision. It might be his or her personal. It might be something the company or the owner has put in place. Doesn't matter. But the leader's job is to articulate for the team, this is how we are going to support our role in the show, so to speak. And then it's always about alignment. Like I said before, alignment. Are your processes aligned? Are your people aligned? And if they're not, and this is what I find in consulting all the time, that like those patterns that reemerge, do you have a culture that will allow alignment to happen? And that is your job as the leader. Figure it out, make it happen, work it out, and you can't delegate that.
Correct.
You got to have the skin in the game, and care, and get in the details enough to make sure that you're aligned.
And then get out of their way.
And get out of their way and let them be fabulous and tell them they are.
Exactly. Right. Is there a particular leader that you think about that has inspired you and your leadership because of what you learned from them? Either good, bad, or indifferent. Because sometimes I've learned a lot from some really horrible leaders. And I go, never do that again.
Right. We're shaped by all of the different influences. Even going back to high school jobs or something, you remember. I certainly have had so many fabulous leaders that inspired me, and learned so many different things from different people. I so enjoyed Judson Green, for example, and the way he listened. And we have other leaders that we all worked with at Disney who are known for being great listeners, and his intense focus and yes-anding, and his intentionality on culture. And he changed the culture.
Yes.
And insisted on a change. He pointed towards it, he modeled it, and he said, this is where we're going. Yeah. And we evolved in a really positive way. Yeah. I learned a lot from him.
I will also say with Judson, there was a relatability. And maybe it was when he would come and play piano on a Friday afternoon in the Team Disney building. But there was something about him that you just thought, I can understand him. He's a human like I am, versus sort of sitting in the Team Disney office at the top, sort of at the top of the pyramid, sort of leading the masses, right? It seemed like he was someone that you could actually approach.
Very relatable. Yeah. And I think a lot of people were. I could, from different leaders, I learned different things. And, thank you, Michael Eisner, for helping me understand what the main thing is and the point of the story, and always coming to that's the most important. And the rest is trimming, important. And he, detail guy, he wants to talk about the design in the carpet and the, scripting of the show. He wants it all. Wing Chao, brilliant. Excitable at the right times and calm at the right times, and always pushing for excellence, that next thing. Al, how to work with people who think numbers first. Yeah. Phil Holmes. I would stand by Phil, and at the front of the Magic Kingdom, which was the first really huge operations job I had. And I would say, he'd be watching the turnstiles and stuff, and I'd say, what do you see? Like, he was looking at flow and gaps and inefficiencies and all this stuff in his brain, just like I can stand and watch a show and see things that nobody else notices, right? At that time. And I was trying to broaden my vision and understand, I wanted to be good at all of it. Yeah. Right? So many. Michael Grant, I could keep going. So many entertainment leaders. It's just,
So there was something that I heard about you before I actually even met you for the first time, was that Christopher Ream was taking you in his car, and I think you guys were probably driving down Meridian in Indianapolis. And he said, you started counting the light poles. And so he said, RK, like, what are you doing? And you're like, we need to have a checkered flag banner on all of these light poles from like this block to this block. And he was just so fascinated by the fact that he's just thinking he's driving you around Indianapolis and he's getting you to your next appointment. And instead you're thinking ahead. It's sort of like Phil watching the turnstiles. And he was fascinated by like, what do you see, RK, that I don't see?
Right. Well, well, we are on an advanced trip, right?
Yeah.
And we're there to advance the project.
Right. And you have a plan in mind. These are the things you need to accomplish.
I don't remember that. I'm kind of impressed that I was counting the light poles. But, I would be thinking about.
Right. I need 40 banners and I need them on both sides of the street.
4,000 or whatever it was. And then, who are we going to get to sponsor that? And, all the.
Right.
All the pieces of that. So that's a funny story.
Yeah.
You had a great man.
All right. So take a sip. I'm going to thank our sponsor.
Thank you.
So D3 Brewing Company, you guys have been exceptional from a sponsorship standpoint. So they make several of fine craft beers. So Midnight Pumpkin is actually one of the seasonal beers. Three Wishes is their newest one. It's a hazy IPA. Benny's Brew is a classic ale. And Retired Rides is another one. I actually don't have it here. I couldn't even find it. It's that popular. It's a great IPA. So D3 Brewing Company, they understand the importance about creating connections and crafting something unforgettable. So whether or not you're toasting a big idea, celebrating a small win, or just looking to savor some inspiration, check out D3 Brewing Company and their fine craft beers. They've got the perfect pour for every occasion. And in every sip, you're not just enjoying an excellent brew, which they are, you're also part of a story around loyalty, fun, and bringing people together. So cheers to great beer, great conversations, and the magic of D3 Brewing Company. So cheers to that.
Cheers to them.
Yes.
Love that. Thank you for your sponsorship.
Yes,
it's
indeed.
a great opportunity I have today, thanks to them.
So let's talk post-pandemic innovation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you were at Princess Cruise Line.
Yes.
Right? Princess Cruises. And you led the expansion of Medallion Class digital experience, right? So that was really creating or blending together the sort of end-to-end guest experience.
Right.
So what did you learn from the perspective of driving innovation and user adoption in the digital realm?
Well, I learned it's actually the same.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I knew that, but it was another example of that. First of all, Princess Cruises, amazing legacy, storied company, one of the great cruise lines, sort of the Alaska experts, really, really outstanding history, and the Love Boat, of course, had this bold vision. And John Padgett, who had been at Disney with us, led this bold vision of using digital technology, which they called the Medallion Class, to take a massive cruise ship with 3,000, 4,000 passengers and personalize the experience en masse. How do you make those 4,000 people feel like they're on a yacht with personalized service, right? How do you shrink that down? And never would be possible, right? 20 years ago.
Yes.
And so that is the promise of the Medallion Class. Highly innovative, pushing the limits of technology all the time. The team was extremely talented. I would say it's challenging, though. It's the same question. Is the team aligned? Do they all understand where we're going? You're talking about a crew base of 20,000 employees, right? That all needed a level of expertise, whether they were in the call center, pre-cruise, or interfacing with travel agents, in the terminal, or checking people in, on board, in all departments had different aspects of the technology, and then post-cruise. And so how do you, the commitment that a company has to have to change and innovate and teach at that scale is tremendous and takes a lot of resources. So once again, we all learn, right? Vision is fantastic. You have to have it. If you don't have a compelling vision, then who cares?
Right.
Right? So you have the compelling vision, but now can you organize the resources
And execute.
The implementation, the training, and the reinforcement, and that continues to this day. But, worked with Francois Leroux, another really outstanding leader and visionary person, on his team as each of the ships went through their transition as they came out of the pandemic and into the medallion class, and the technical part, the training part, et cetera. So big project, fun, and really, really a great experience.
So I found that working with the technology team, you really have to refine the language that you use to be able to communicate effectively, right? So marketing, we think in a very different way than the technology people. And so when you have business objectives and you're trying to write then the technical requirements, right? And make sure that everyone understands and that we're all saying the same thing. So how did you work through the communication challenges that are inherent in working with different types of teams, like the technology team versus the guest experience team?
Oh, any of my Princess colleagues that see this are going to laugh, because they will know that I sat through the first 3 months of meetings writing down terms that I had no idea what they meant. It was an entirely different language.
Correct.
I had not, of course, we all use software. I had not been in the development of software or the user acceptance testing of software or go-to-market strategies for software.
Right.
And so all of that was a huge learning curve. But again, look for those patterns. Is the vision clear? Is it being communicated clearly? All those, are the teams aligned around it?
Yeah.
Right? I didn't have to be a software expert. We had hundreds of them.
Right. And they're all in the same
developers
room.
all over, well, and all over the world. But organizing a process, because it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
The amount, the scale, and the complexity of the technology that was being developed and is being developed was incredible. Yeah. So how do you break that down? But I will tell you, it was humorous and scary. And I had great people that I got to work with that helped me so much. You know who you are, and explained it a lot. And I learned a lot.
Tech is something that you cannot fake it till you make it, because you're building things. It's foundational, right? And so once you set those requirements, that's what you're asking for. You don't get to go and change and say like, "Oh, this is a change in scope." It's massively expensive.
I don't care if you're building a set or a software program, right? If you don't think your requirements through in detail,
right, and are clear
and communicate them well, and all the way through think all the way through the process, and have the right people think through the process, you are going to waste time and money, and you will never be done on time. You'll die in change orders, and you'll miss deadlines and budget. And people, we all want to skip through requirements. We all want to arm wave, right? Here's my napkin drawing, build that, right? But it is the key to success, that attention to detail.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the intersection of creativity and operations.
Okay.
You've successfully balanced creative roles like producing halftime shows, fireworks spectaculars, operational roles, right? Such as managing costuming for 45,000 cast members, which is, I can't even wrap my brain around that. How do you maintain creativity and operational excellence?
Well, isn't that the $1 million question that every CEO wants to know, right? How do we innovate and still stay excellent and deliver? I've had the opportunity so often to come into into a division, into an organization, into a company, and what I've learned is when you have operations ongoing, and you're looking to either innovate what you're doing, or you have a parallel creative arm or department or something, that the operation has a certain appetite. It's the tyranny of the urgent. It's hungry. It wants attention. And you have to create mental and emotional space in order to create, right? So they run at very different paces.
Right.
And so my secret was always, what I learned to do was stabilize the operation and take care of that. Create, get the alignment there, get the processes in place, deal with the team issues, whatever it is, and make sure that you had a good culture where problems could then be self-addressed, right? But you get involved, stabilize, and then you can create space for yourself and teammates to have ideas, to say, what else might work, to think about a new product line or whatever. You can't do that when you're constantly fighting fires.
Correct.
So that is, to me, that is the key to the balance. Is if you come in and you start saying, I want to hear everybody's ideas and we're going to do new things, and they're like, okay, they're trying to get the fireworks show up that night, or they're dealing with a weather emergency, or they're, having customer service complaints, overwhelm their channels because we have product issues. They can't sit down in a meeting or go home and brainstorm.
Right.
So you have to create emotional and mental space for that. And and that's always been how I balance thinking about them.
I don't think people have the level of appreciation on how complex the Disney operations are every day. Like, there were days to where I thought, how are we going to open this park on time? Right? Or how does the parade get out on time? Because the fairy godmother, she can't find her wand. And if she can't find that, then she can't go out. And Cinderella's coach can't go out either.
That's
right?
Right.
And it's just every single day, it's so complex.
The complexity, the layers of complexity are enormous.
Yes.
They absolutely are.
All right, so part of your career
But
has
you have to make
also
it look
been-
easy.
right?
And fun.
Exactly. And magical.
Yes.
So part of your career has been in arts administration, right? That's your background. So you have been incredibly involved in arts administration and nonprofit work in the Orlando area. In fact, you were named, oh my gosh, one of the most influential people in Orlando, right? Back in the pandemic timeframe.
Helping make things better.
Yes, make things better. Thank you. So what lessons do you think nonprofits can take from the corporate world to drive engagement and fundraising?
Tell your story. Tell your story in a compelling way. I don't care if you're selling soup or presenting the Orlando Ballet. How do you bring that story and that promise to life? It's the same thing. The resources look different in the nonprofit world. That's usually where you see the difference, and you have to get very creative. Don't always have the budgets to buy the TV ads and that sort of thing. So, channels from a marketing point of view, channels become really, really important because you can only invest in certain ones.
Right.
Or you have to find a sponsor to help carry the water on the more expensive ones, right? So why does the sponsor get involved? Because you tell your story and they identify with your mission and they believe in, Coalition for the Homeless, or they believe in, health care for children in Title I schools, or they, so whatever it is that you're telling the story about, you're presenting the need and you're telling the story about why it matters and how they can make a difference.
I love it. There's definitely a through line, right, between corporate and nonprofit. What lessons have you learned from working with these nonprofits that business leaders can apply to their organization? So it's almost like the reverse of what can corporations learn from nonprofits?
Nonprofits, many of them, and there are some mega nonprofits, of course, but there's far more small ones, and under-resourced, small staffs, limited budgets, right? But I will tell you, a well-aligned, let's say aligned again, a well-aligned, mission-focused, clear with the vision team and a board of with modest means can do amazing things. Whereas a larger organization that can hire people and has a specialist for everything, right? In a small nonprofit, you might have 1 or 2 marketing people. You certainly don't have an expert for every channel, and a strategy manager, and a brand advisor, and 10 designers. You don't have any of that.
Yeah.
You're doing it with a couple of people that have to be very clear on their story and their brand, and they work hard. But what corporate America can learn is it's all about alignment and people believing in what they're doing.
Yes, and the passion.
The passion matters, and alignment, and get your culture such that in your processes and your people and such that they can be great, and then let them be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So nonprofits rely a lot on storytelling to really communicate their vision, their mission to donors and their audiences. How can organizations and nonprofits strike the balance between that emotional connection, but also the strategic messaging?
I really love doing that, actually. One of the organizations I worked with a lot was the Orlando Philharmonic, and served as the board chair and led some projects for them over the years. And I love telling the story of the music or of the musicians or a musician, et cetera. And that's the emotional part, right? But then I'd always lace my message, thinking about like giving a pre-curtain speech, with a little bit of fact and figure, something they didn't know, a little bit about the cost, or a little bit about how this is possible or what a barrier is to deliver. And those little bits, not long lectures, but little bits, are usually what somebody would find me in the lobby and ask me about. And
which is exactly what you need.
Which is exactly what you need. And that, I didn't know that was a challenge, or I didn't know Orlando Philharmonic, for the size of orchestra it is in this market, I say punches way above its weight, both in quality, versatility, as well as new compositions that are commissioned. Those are amazing, but somebody has to tell them, we're really good at these things. Right. And you should appreciate that these people are so good at these things. And not saying you should, but you shine the spotlight, tell their story, tell why it's unique. And then I want to get involved in that.
So RK, your alma mater is Butler University from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yes.
And you remain very, very active in your alma mater. How has that connection with Butler University influenced your career, and what advice do you have for others for staying connected to their universities?
Oh my. Well, first of all, anytime you can be on campus and be with students is the most invigorating thing to me. And certainly that's been a personal joy for me to go back and guest lecture or serve on various boards and such. And I think it's critical to stay relevant, to go back to where people that are starting their career, what are they asking you? What are they thinking about? What tools do they need? What are they being taught? And is it really setting them up for a job, or is it setting them up for a theory? So that's been what I kind of get out of it. It's interesting for me to think about, and I feel like I'm helping by helping to fill in some of those gaps. So I'd say definitely helps my career in that it helps keep me current, and we all need to stay current. I think great things about universities is you interface with people that you otherwise would not, and learn about fields that you otherwise would not. So I'll give you an example. In addition to the Butler Ballet and the art school there, which is very strong, Butler has, thanks to Eli Lilly's partnership, one of the best pharmacy schools in the country, right? Lots of pharmacists came out of there. Lots of my roommates were in pharmacy school. And because of that, later on in life, when I was talking sponsorships, I could talk to pharmaceutical companies because I knew a little bit about it, and I never would have known that had I not been at school there, and then later worked with people in research, in corporate pharmacy, in obviously retail, the Walgreens of the world, and management layers of that, and certainly sales. And understanding and rubbing shoulders with those people helped me understand their world. Mm-hmm. And it helped me support my orchestra or support whatever cause I was
I love it.
Pursuing. It's just been great. Thank you.
It's a special place.
It is a special place.
Very much so. And my hometown of Indianapolis.
There you go.
Both. So you're a part of Magic Makers.
I am.
And you work with businesses across industries to elevate their operations and experiences. What's a common challenge and how do you guide clients through the solution? Is it knowing the main thing? Yeah.
I see patterns, like I said before. Yeah. When we start working with a new client, and like I said, it can be an engineering firm that I know nothing about, or a software company, or it can be a themed entertainment client. Are they clear on the main thing? Do they have alignment around the main thing? Mm-hmm. Are their products and services prioritized and invested in? And then it's always about alignment. Processes and people. Do they have the tools they need? Do the processes work together?
Right.
And are they really fulfilling the goal? And if they're not, do they have a culture that will allow it to change? And that's, I think, one of the great things about Magic Makers is we all have had the benefit of working in at least one company that had an extremely strong and collaborative culture, and we understand that, and we have expertise in bringing that culture and leading cultural change. Because it almost always has to happen in order to grow. Something has to change. Change is loss. You have to take people through that.
Right.
And so that's, I think that's a big benefit to our group, and I love all the expertise and different tricks of the trade we've all developed over the years to do that. But that's what I see in every company.
Excellent. All right, we've got a couple standard questions that I ask folks to wrap up the show.
Okay.
First one, since it is called Marketing Over Bourbon, if you were a bourbon.
If I was a bourbon.
What would you be and why?
Well, I would say I've evolved, just like our tastes in wine or bourbon evolve over time and usually get hopefully more sophisticated. But I've liked bourbon for a long time, but I've moved away from those that are, have a harder bite, for example, or are too sweet, right? And I certainly favor a smoother and complex bourbon, and like the Hirsch, which you were kind enough to provide us this morning, which is one of my, by the way, it's
taping at 10.
Pre-noon. We are, so I would say as I've evolved through life, I smooth, complex.
Sophisticated,
but not over dramatic.
Excellent.
So I would say that's how I intend to approach life.
Perfect. So if you could go back and experience one thing at Disney for the first time ever again, it could be a ride, it could be a show, like anything, what would you want it to be and why?
I love Disney's current commercials running about "Do you have a Disney moment?" which are random stop people on the street. And some of those stories that people pull out their iPhone and show a picture, it's always that first visit.
Yeah.
It's often that first visit. And I first visited at 14. My family flew down from Chicago, first time I'd ever been on a plane, for a Florida vacation. We went to Miami and Walt Disney World for one day, the Magic Kingdom. And I remember being stunned by Main Street. Stunned, especially at night on the light parade, all the lights, the horses drawing the carriages, the the immense layering and realism of the environment, and that they had created just as Walt intended. It didn't feel like a carnival. I didn't know what to expect. I really had no idea, except for what we'd seen on Wonderful World of Disney. You know, there was no marketing that told us everything there was to know about Disney. There was no websites, right? You showed up. And I couldn't believe it. I was so immersed. And I was already involved with the arts and the music, just the layers. I just remember thinking, there's so many layers. And then all these years later, to have an office that overlooked Main Street. And to be responsible to create that environment and for thousands and thousands of people every single day was an enormous responsibility. And I remember so many times being that like 14-year-old kid standing out there. So it was neat. That's my moment. I'd go back.
Perfect. So I also ask people on a show, what question do they have? So here's a question from a previous guest. Tell us a story about a time in your career when something went wrong. So maybe you were maybe you were implementing
that never happens to me.
Maybe it was new strategy, a project, a tactic, but what went wrong and how did you react and what did you do? You can thank Rob for that one.
Thanks, Rob. Well, you know, I'm really tempted to tell a story of one of the thousands of rained out press events, right?
Yes, go there. Yes. Okay, explain what a press event is and why it's so important and then why the rain is very problematic.
So press events are, as you well know, when Disney wants to open a new land, a new ride, a new theme park, or even launch a whole new promotion or a whole new era. You know, the Disney decade, 100 Years of Magic, some of those things. They have a press event, and they're all about every year and a half. Yeah. And remember the magic. We could go on, right? And start rattling them off. In a press event, you gather 6,000. It varies in number. Press from around the world, travel industry press, and entertainment and all others. And you know, have morning TV shows and radio broadcasts and special parties, and the press gets the VIP treatment to see Disney and see the new thing first.
And these are multiple days.
Many days.
A good so 3-4 days.
Yes.
Marketing message.
Right. And hourly events and previews and Q&As with executives. And so they're a massive undertaking. And it sure seems like there were an awful lot of them when it decided to just pour on. And the one I remember most is Aladdin's Magical Night Out. The very first time that we had premiered one of our movies, a Disney movie in Florida, and premiered Aladdin's Magical Night Out. So we had film press, and we went all out. It was the first $1 million party we ever threw, and I was producing it. Elephants from Ringling, costumes, you know, we're going to create that parade through the Disney MGM studios at the time. And the skies just opened. Thunder, lightning, horses rearing, kicking people, elephants, you know, upset. And, we delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed and, you know, passed out the umbrellas and the yellow Mickey slickers, and the guests went around and had a grand old time. You know, it's all open bar. Very critical to keep people happy. And played games and things we had, and we finally, 2 hours late, you know, got a break and hauled all those animals and people back out and put on the parade. And I remember our costuming people, like the big feathery headdresses would be completely ruined in anything that was, you know, any kind of moisture. So they're like ripping them off the girls' heads and throwing like a wig that would look like yours on instead, you know, for them to go out on the street. It's insane. So, thank you. Anyway, things go wrong. And that's one example. So persevere,
right?
Keep working the plan. Don't stop the countdown clock, right? You
can't
intending
stop. They've flown
to
here,
deliver,
right? You gotta make it happen.
You can rework it, you can pause, but you keep rolling. So, and that's what good looks like. You know, you delivered the experience. It wasn't exactly the same, and everybody was soaked, but a lot of great stories came out of it too.
Perfect.
And they said, "Oh my gosh, those Disney people didn't give up."
Yeah.
And here we are.
So you get to return the favor for a future, not necessarily for Rob, but for a future guest. So what question would you like me to ask on your behalf?
Did you ever want to give up?
And did you?
And did you?
Yeah.
Well, what change did you make?
Yeah. Perfect.
That's my question.
So RK, you've had an incredible career, as we talked about. And it's been incredibly complex. It's been a really amazing journey. I'm sure that you have many, many career moments. Pick one. Tell us about one thing that really stands out in your career where you go, wow, I can't believe I got to be a part of that.
Oh, there's been so many great experiences, truly. I could certainly launching Disney Cruise Line. I mean, something that was that creative and that difficult, and that rewarding, and to create a new class, a completely new class of experience was probably a highlight, not the. I don't even know if I'm done yet, right? So, but you think about the cruise industry. 70-something-year-old was the average age of cruising. And kids were in that sticky ball pit I mentioned, that handful of kids on the Christmas cruise. The industry was not made for families and kids. The median age of cruising is now 43. That means there are a lot of children in the industry, a lot of young people. And we Disney Cruise Line, can take credit for that shift, at leading it. And you see all the followers, how all the other lines have changed their approach. So that's a proud one.
RK, thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure.
So fun.
Yes.
And your insights and stories and lessons learned have been incredibly useful, and I'm sure that people have found them very inspiring and things that you can apply today, right, to your job, your company, et cetera. So from your time at Disney to Princess Cruises to the nonprofit world, especially in the Orlando community, you've made such an impact, and you've applied your blend of leadership and creativity and strategy, and that's made such a difference. So thank you. I also want to thank the D3 Brewing Company folks for their well-crafted beers and their sponsorship of this show. Your support is just, it's beyond words. So thank you very much. Also, thank you very much to Iron Pixel Studio, where we are today in Orlando. You guys are absolutely tremendous. And for everyone watching, I hope you found this conversation has sparked new ideas about how to blend storytelling and partnerships and strategy and knowing the main thing in your work, whether or not you're in corporate America or you're in nonprofit outreach. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe to Marketing Over Bourbon. And remember that sometimes the best ideas come when you take a moment to sip on something great. So drinks up, kungaloosh, and we'll see you next time.